In the last tutorial or in the last video, we have seen what is a collection. Basically, we have gone through the introduction for the collection, right? So in this tutorial, we are going to start off with the collection interface or collection framework, and the first data structure we are going to learn is an array list. So before we start off with implementing for the array list, I have created a new project which I am naming this as a collections demo. And inside this src folder, I'm going to create a new package, and I'm going to name this package as, let's say, com.collections dot demo, right? And I've created that package here, and it has already created me these folders. And inside this demo folder, I'm going to create one more package called as, let's say, ArrayList. So I'm going to name this as ArrayList, and inside this, I'm going to create a Java class file, which I will name this as ArrayList demo. So I have created a class which is called as an ArrayList demo inside an ArrayList package, and I'm going to create a public static void main method here, right? So this is what we have been doing. We have been creating classes. We have been creating main method to run the code. So as I said that I'm going to start off with an array list, array list demo or array list, the first data structure, which is an array list. So to define an array list, right, before we start implementing an array list. So array list is basically an list data structures. Just like the primitive types, it only holds the single type of values, right? So if you define an array list of string, then it will only hold the string objects. Or if you define an array list of integers, it will hold only integer values. As well as, you cannot have an array list of primitive data types, right? So it only accepts the wrapper types of those primitive data types, which we have seen in the wrapper class section. So I'm going to define the array list here, the first array list, which I'm going to name this as array list, right? So to define an array list, you need to have this array list, which comes from java.util class, right? So this is inside a java util package with the class name as ArrayList, and you need to provide a generic which will specify the type of this the object this ArrayList will hold. So I'm going to name this as a string, and I'm going to you know name this ArrayList as names, right? So I have defined an ArrayList of string, right? And I have named the variable as names. So let's go into this ArrayList class, which we are. So in this ArrayList class, this class basically, extends an abstract list interface, right? And it implements the list interface, it implements the random access interface, it implements clonialable, as well as it also implements the serializable. So serializable is nothing but, if you want to store a data inside a file, or if you want to pass the data, serializable helps to serialize your data to efficiently pass the data, or to the right to write data, right? So if you go into this abstract list, this is basically an abstract class that actually implements the list interface, and it extends an abstract collection. So this is the root collection, which is called as an abstract collection. This is an abstract class which implements a collection interface. So we have gone to the root of this collection framework, which is which we have seen in the previous tutorial. So collection is an interface. It accepts E. This is E. This is generic E, which is called as an element, and it extends iteratable, which we have seen in the previous tutorial. Iteratable provides an iterator method uh, where you can iterate through each and every element of the collection. So in this collection method, there are various methods, right? In this collection interface, sorry, there are various methods defined, which is like size, right? For example, I'm defining an array list, and I'm adding the array list, the objects inside an array list. I want to know what is the size of the array list, so you can call this method. It also checks whether the array list is empty or not. It can check whether if certain object is present inside an array list or not. So these are all basically, the various methods provided. So as you could see here, this iterator, right, which we have seen in the previous tutorial or in the previous video. So iterator, if you see on this comment, it returns an iterator over the elements in this collection. There are no guarantees concerning the order in which the elements are returned, right? So it's basically says that if you are iterating through an element, the order, there is no guarantee that the order will be maintained. But we are going to see about this. We are going to see in this tutorial only while we are implementing the array list. Also, you can convert it into the object array. This is which we have seen, right? We have seen this notation, right? Open and close square brackets. So this is the arrays which we have seen in the arrays demo. So there are various methods which you can go through this, right, inside the collection. And inside this abstract class, abstract collection class, there is also various abstract methods defined here, which says an iterator, it says the size. Also, the default implementation of is empty, right? So here we have an is empty method. So which actually checks whether the size is 0 or not, and it returns the boolean value, right? This operation will return a boolean value. If size is greater than 0, this will return as true. This will return as false, sorry. And if size is 0, this will return as true, which will say that the collection class is actually empty. So you can go through these classes, right? The abstract collection, the abstract list, and then we already have this array list object, which we have created in this ArrayList demo. So without wasting time, I have created an ArrayList of string, and I'm going to, as this is a class, right? So you need to initialize it. So how do you initialize, you know, the collection? For example, this is an ArrayList demo, right? So how do you initialize a class? So using a new keyword and calling the constructor, and there you have the object. So here also we need to create an object of this collection, which is an array list. So to do that, we are also going to do the same. We're going to use the new keyword, and we are going to call this array list, right? So remember this accepts a generic. So here you can specify string. It's fine, right? But it's redundant here, so you can keep this empty as well, or you can write string. So as it is redundant, I'm going to remove this. And also note that if you define it as integer, this will give us an error because you have defined the array, the names array, the data type of name is an array list of string, so you cannot have an integer here. So you need to have a string. This is important. So I'm going to remove this, and here we have initialized the names, which is a type of array list of string. And now, how do you add the names inside this array list? So collection provides us a method called as add. So names.add, and I'm going to add the first name with, let's say, for example, professor. So let's go into this add method, and if you see inside this add method, we with the first method, this is basically a method which says that to ensure the capacity internal, this basically checks whether the array list is full or not. If the array list is full, so increase the size by 1 and add the element. So by default, the size of array list is 10. So here when we declared this line, right? So if you could see here, this is basically creating an object of array list with a default capacity, right? So we will have there is some. Okay, so here we have the default capacity, which is 10, right? So the default capacity or the default size of the array list is 10. So as it is a dynamic array, we can, even if the even if you try to add the 11th element, it will check whether the size of array list is full. So while adding the 11th element, the size is full, so it will increment by 1 and then it will add that element. So that's why it is called as a dynamic arrays. But in the past we have seen the arrays, right, using square brackets. Those were fixed size arrays. Once you define the size, you cannot have more elements than the defined size. So I'm going to again add, let's say, one more method. Let's say I'm going to add here as spawn. I'm going to have names dot add, and here I can have, add Chirag, right? I can have name dot add. I can name this, let's say, uh, Johnson. Okay. So basically, what I am doing is I'm actually adding the names inside this ArrayList object, right? The names object. So let's print out some of the method inside this array list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a system.out.println. First thing first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check for the size of the array list. So if you go into this size method, this will actually return the size, right? The size of the array list. So this size is present here. This is basically an instance variable which is called as a size. So this will return me the size, as well as what I'm going to do is system dot out dot println. You can get the element at specific position. Let's say I want to get the element at third position. You can do that. So let's run this code and see what is the output. So I'm going to run this code, the main method of this class, and if you notice, the size and the array of this. So the size of the array list is 4, as we have added 4 elements here, and if at the third element or at the third index the object is Johnson. So as you notice, the index starts from 0, so at 0th position it's professor, at the first position is Spawn, at second it's Chirag, at fourth it's Johnson. Sorry, at third it's Johnson. Let's say that if I'm getting for the fourth element, so when I run this code, right? So as I run this code, I will have an exception which will say that this is an out of bound exception, as you have only 4 elements. Even if you are trying to get the fourth element, and I don't find the element at the fourth index, so this will throw as an exception. So keep a note of this, right? So let's see the other methods here. System.out.println. What I'm going to do is names dot, and I could see here the get, which we have seen, the size, add. So add all is basically, so let's use this add all. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to create a new array list here, new array list, new array list which is of type string, and I'm going to name this as, okay, so let me have pin codes. So I'm going to name this as pin codes. Pin codes is equals to new array list, right? So pin codes are nothing but zip codes. So I'm going to add some pin codes here. So I'm going to have, let's say, 1 as a dummy value. I'm going to have pin codes that add, let's say, 2 here, right? So add all, let's say that you want to add the elements of this array list inside this names array list, right? So how do you do that? You do that using an add all method. So I have defined a new array list here, and I've added a dummy values here. And if you want to add this array list elements inside this array list, you can do that using this add all method. So basically what this will do is, so let's again print the size of this array list. So system.out.println, I'm going to check the size of the array list. So let me run this code here. So as I run this code, you'll see, okay, I'm getting here at the fourth element. I need to remove and check for the third element, right? So I'm getting for the third element, and this time it will work. So as you could see, the size of the array list initial size was 4 because we added only fourth element. Now, when I got the value at the third index, which is Johnson, right? I did an add all operation. This actually returns a Boolean value. This actually says that the operation add all was successful. So that's why it's true, right? And the new size is 6 because these two got added into this array list. Now let's say that I want to get the index at fourth element, so get of 4, you will be able to get the fourth object right inside the array list. So as you could see, it's 1 because we have added this array list inside this names object. So also let's see that there are various methods. There is an add all. You can have an add all at a specific index, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to again use one more, let's say add, and I want to add at a specific index. I want to update the value at a specific index. So let's say at fourth index, I want to add the value as, let's say, um, I'll name this as C, okay, letter C, right? And let's try to get the value at, you know, so sorry, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here. So let's run this code again. So as you run this code, you'll see the value at the fourth index was 1 previously, right? Here it came as 1, but after adding at a specific index, so I updated the index 4 with a new value of C, and I'm getting this C value, right? So this is what the array list is, and this array list is probably one of the widely used, the data structure. This is my perspective, right? I use widely in while developing an Android application, and this is very important to know this array list or a list data structure, right? So you can also explore various other methods, and you can do that by using this, right? Using add all, you can clear the array list. So clear will actually remove all the object inside an array list. This will make the array list empty, right? And you can check for the contains method. So basically contains method will check whether the element is present or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check for the value, see whether this is present or not. You can also use a for each for the array list. So for each will iterate through the array list, right? So you can check for this. So if you see here the for each, it actually has an action, yeah, and you can iterate through each element. So let's say for example I'm going to have a lambda expression, and inside this, I'm going to print the value of each element, right? So this is a lambda expression. I have used here a lambda expression. And what I'm doing is this for each is basically iterating through an array, and it will give us each element here, and I'm actually printing that out here. Also, I'm going to keep this s out, and I'm going to, I want to show you what is the output of this contains method. So ideally the contents method will return true because C is actually present inside the array list, right? So what I did here is okay, so this true is coming from this line, which is whether the names array list contains C. Yes, it's true. And if you could see here, this names.forEach, this is basically iterating through this array list, right? So instead of using for loop, I have used a for each method, and for each will give us each and every element here, and using lambda expression we can do any operation, right? So I'm just here printing here system.out.print line, and it's just printing each and every element inside an array list. So you can explore by your own the various methods. So this is all about an array list, and just go through the documentation of the array list, and try to do your own operation. This is how you are going to learn about the array list. So in the next tutorial we are going to see about a new concept. So we'll see you in the next tutorial.